Okay, so good evening, everybody. I am very impressed that we have currently 47 participants on what is the opening night for England playing in the World Cup. And on that note, we have a very, very firm hard stop, which is 9 o'clock, or if not, a little bit before 9 o'clock to enable people to get away, switch on the TV or head out to the pub. Just a couple of housekeeping rules. And next slide, please. So the first housekeeping rule is I think all our mics are muted. By all means, please do use the chat. Please do use the chat. But if you do want to ask a question, and next slide, please. If you do want to ask a question, then do type it into the question and answer box, the Q&A box there. And what we will do is we'll save up all the questions until the end of the webinar, where we have specifically set aside some time for that. So that's our running order for tonight. There's me, and then we're going to invite Anne, who is our regional port chaplain in Plymouth, to open with a prayer. And then we're going to hear from our chair of trustees, a little bit from me, but it's not just me talking. We've got a very powerful impact video to show. And then I think the highlight of the evening will be to hear stories from Deacon Joe O'Donnell and his dealings with seafarers and fishers. A little bit from me in terms of looking forward to 2026, although, of course, we're right in the middle of 2026. And then thank yous, and then Q&A, and then some final closing remarks from me. So I reckon we're probably going to maximum, I reckon, an hour and a half. But we'll see. But if we've got lots of questions, we'll be here till 5 to 9. So without any further ado, next slide, please. Over to you, Anne, for the opening prayer.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Lord, thank you for gathering us together this evening to say thank you to all our supporters and to discuss how we can help and support the invaluable work of seafarers and fishers. Help us to speak with clarity and listen attentively always, being missionaries of God's love and tenderness. Our Lady Star of the Sea, pray for all seafarers and fishers, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Anne. Next slide, please. So he needs no introduction, but I'm now going to hand you over to our Chair of Trustees, Dr. Esteban Pacha, for his opening remarks. Over to you, Esteban. We just need to unmute Esteban. You're on, Esteban.
Yes, I was just welcoming everyone to this thank you webinar this evening. And before we begin, I'd like you to take a moment to think about something you have all done today. Perhaps you have enjoyed a meal, switch on a light, fill up your car, ordered something online, or receive a delivery. Behind almost every one of those everyday activities is a seafarer or a fisher whose work makes it possible. Yet, despite the vital role they play in our daily lives and in the global economy, seafarers and fishers often remain invisible to the very people they serve. The maritime industry has been called the invisible engine of the global economy, carrying goods, food, energy that sustain our daily lives. Behind this essential work are men and women who spend weeks or months at sea, far from home and loved ones, often facing challenging and sometimes dangerous conditions. And this is why the mission of Stella Maris matters so much. As chair of Stella Maris Board of Trustees, it is my great pleasure to open this evening gathering and most importantly to express our heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you for your support to Stella Maris. Whether you are a parish contact, volunteer, ship visitor, a donor, chaplain, trustee, a member of staff, a friend of our mission, you are an essential part of the Stella Maris community. Tonight is about recognizing your contribution and sharing with you the difference that your generosity, commitment, and prayers make in the lives of seafarers and fishers around the world. For more than a century now, Stella Maris has been committed to standing alongside these maritime communities, offering practical help, pastoral care, friendship, advocacy, and hope. Our mission remains as relevant today as it has ever been. But that mission can only be fulfilled because people like you choose to support it. Every ship visit, every welfare center, every chaplaincy service, every emergency intervention, every conversation with a seafarer who simply needs someone to listen. These are made possible through your generosity and dedication. Tonight, we want to bring that impact to life. We want to show how your support reaches peoples in port, on ships, and in fishing communities across the globe. We want to share stories that demonstrate not only the challenges faced by those who work at sea, but also the resilience, dignity, and courage they show every day. We also want to give you an insight into the work Stella Maris is undertaking now and our priorities for the future. The maritime world continues to change rapidly. New technologies, geopolitical tensions, environmental challenges, labor issues, and changing patterns of trade all affect the lives of seafarers and fishers. Stella Maris must continue to adapt and respond while remaining faithful to our core mission and providing care and support to those who work at sea. This evening, you will hear from members of our staff, led by our CEO, team, and National Director, who brings a wealth of experience and insight. Together, they will share updates from across our network and examples of the impact being achieved through your support. We are also delighted to be joined by Father Jose Conrado from Stella Maris Philippines, who will provide a valuable perspective from one of the world's leading seafaring nations. As you listen this evening, I hope you will feel a renewed sense of connection with the people whose lives you help transform. Behind every statistic is a person. Behind every program is a human story. And behind every success is a community of supporters like you who make it possible. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I want to thank you once again for your commitment to Stella Maris. Your support is not only helping us deliver its services, It is helping us uphold the dignity of some of the world's most essential, yet often overlooked workers. We are deeply grateful for your partnership, your generosity, and your belief in our mission. And I hope you enjoyed the webinar, find it informative and inspiring, and feel proud of the part you play in this important work. And I hope also all the best for England tonight. Thank you for being with us this evening, and thank you for all that you do for Stella Maris. I now pass and hand over to Tim and our presenters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Esteban. Next slide, please, Sarah. And first of all, my thanks to both Sarah and Naz for all the clever electronic wizardry. There are a couple of times where there'll be a little bit of a delay. So at that point, I've been directed to do some ad-libbing. But good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for your words of introduction, Esteban. We're currently on 55 participants. We were up to 57. I'm going to give a shout out for a few, but I can't shout out everybody. So please don't be offended if I don't give you a personal shout out. But it's lovely to see John Hood, our Vice Chair of Trustees, online. It's lovely to see Deacon Nick, our our Senior Airport Chaplain for Southern England and Wales. Father Finbar, beaming in from Dublin, where he is the chaplain there. And then from the support staff, Paul, Mike, Annie, Janine, Peter, Luke, and Ola. Of course, Luke is our chaplain in Southampton. And then some of our volunteers, Pam, Barbara, Mary, Anne-Marie, and then all of our loyal friends and loyal supporters. And there's one person I'm going to single out is Gordon. Gordon, on his way to the Portsmouth Mass the other day, his car fell into a massive pothole. His car broke down. Gordon, thank you so much for your message the other day, expressing your disappointment being able to join us. But you certainly joined us in Portsmouth in spirit. So thank you. Now, whether you are a faithful donor, a parish priest, a parish volunteer, a parish contact, a volunteer ship visitor, a corporate supporter, a trust funder, a volunteer knitter, a chaplain, member of the support team, or someone who simply remembers Stella Maris in their prayers, I want to begin by expressing my sincere gratitude. Now, everything I'm going to speak about this evening has been made possible through your generosity, commitment, and support. Now, at Stella Maris, we often talk about putting people first. We do not see seafarers and fishers simply as workers moving goods around the world. We see people, fathers, mothers, sons and daughters, individuals with hopes, worries, rights, needs, and families. Now, tonight, I want to share three things with you. The difference your support made in 2025, some of our key achievements during the year, and what we hope to achieve in 2026. Now, why does Stella Maris matter? Well, more than 95% of the goods bought and sold in the UK arrives by sea, and Esteban touched on that. Yet the people who make it possible often face loneliness, isolation, fatigue, danger, and sometimes exploitation. And we'll hear more about that from Joe later on during his talk. And that is why Stella Maris exists. To be a friend when one is needed, to support people in a crisis, to advocate for justice and dignity, to provide spiritual, pastoral, and practical care to the people of the sea. But enough from me. And Sarah, if you want to start spooling up that video, let's look at the impact video put together by Naz and Sarah in our comms team, which tells the story far better than me. Thank you, Sarah. I think you'll all agree the real impact is not found in statistics. The real impact is found in people. Every ship visit represents a human encounter. Every hospital visit means someone was not left alone. And every emergency grant represents a family supported through a difficult time. So some of our key achievements in 2025, well, we strengthened our UK chaplaincy through the establishment of a full-time chaplain in Liverpool and the Northwest. We've expanded our international partnerships with Kenya, Tanzania, the Philippines and Ukraine. We've also supported the formation of the new Apostleship of the Sea, which is the guiding and coordinating body that currently sits inside the Dicastery for Integral Human Development in the Vatican. We've improved fisher safety. We've increased our advocacy with Peter Morgan, our chaplain from Bristol, but also our advocacy case officer attending a vital conference at the ILO in Geneva. We've developed global systems and governance, helping to extend that presence. So we have that continuity of care, of welfare care throughout the globe as our seafarers move around the world in the pursuit of their daily business. And we've also achieved a record Sea Sunday. More about that for a minute. So I'm going to have a break from me now, and I'm going to hand over to Deacon Joe O'Donnell, our Senior Airport Chaplain for Scotland and Northern Ireland, who's going to tell you about some of the seafarers and fishers he's been supporting in 2025 and also in this year. Over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, everyone, and once again, welcome to this webinar. I have been asked to talk about some of our work, but first of all, I would like to say it's not just my work, it's the work of the whole team of chaplains, not just here in Scotland, but in the UK, and our support staff, and especially supporters of Stella Maris. So once again, thank you. I would like to start by talking about a phone call I got regarding a seafarer called Renars. And Renars was transferred to a hospital in Glasgow, and very quickly I went to see him and I was told that he had suffered a suspected heart attack. And on meeting Renards, I decided that I would go back and visit him the next day. And he was sitting up and he was chatting to me and he was telling me, yeah, they think I've had a heart attack. And he's 44 years of age, married with 2 young kids, and has worked on the ships for 13 years. And the very next day I went to see Renards. He was sitting up in the chair, and by the time I left to the car park, the hospital phoned me and says, Renards is being transferred to the Golden Jubilee Hospital in Glasgow, which is a specialised hospital for illnesses, especially concerning hearts. So Renards was transferred that afternoon. I went to see him in the evening, and by the next day, he deteriorated very quickly, and it was discovered that he needed a new heart. So the consultant says very quickly he's gone in and out of induced comas. He's seriously ill. So the consultant then informs me that he's going to try and get him on the heart transplant list. And by the next day, the consultant says, under the new rules and regulations, unfortunately, Renards doesn't qualify to be put on the heart transplant list. But the consultant, who was very good, said, look, what does this guy do? What does he actually do? What does a seafarer do? Can you help me? Explain it to me. So along with Clyde Marine and Stella Maris, he was supplied with 188 ILO information. And basically that's maritime law. The consultant looked at that, scrutinised it, and picked 3 lines out and says, I'm going to appeal to the transplant board on 3 lines, and it was to be treated as a shore worker. And he did, and it was accepted. And on a Friday night at 11:10, he phoned me and says, Renars is now on the transplant list. Could I have the next slide, please? Very quickly, Renard's wife was over and she brought her daughter, Dasha. His wife, Jelena, is in the picture, as you can see. And they came over very quickly within the next day, and it was discovered that he was in an induced coma. And unfortunately, his daughter wasn't really allowed in the ward because there's crash teams going about the ward every 2 or 3 minutes. So it wasn't an environment for her. So we also had to support her during the day and look after her, which was unusual for us as chaplains. But Jelena then decided that she had to go home because they lived quite far in Riga, and they had to take the daughter home, and then they had to go and meet the son. And they decided very quickly that she was going to make me next of kin. So it's unusual, but I became the next of kin for Renards. She went home, and then 5 days later, we got a call from the consultant at 5 o'clock at night, and he says, we may have a match for Renards. And he says, we'll phone you at 9 o'clock. Phoned at 9 o'clock and says it is a match, he's going to theatre. Renards went to theatre, and for the next 5 or 6 hours, he had a heart transplant. The heart transplant was successful, and the next day was able to see him through the glass. He had lots of tubes and things on, but he was given as a thumbs up. Then they discovered that he took a stroke during the operation. They gave him a scan for his leg and his arm. So they were more concerned about that while he was recovering from his heart transplant. Could I have the next slide, please? So Renard had rehabilitation. His wife came back over and brought Dasher back over. And while she was visiting, we would take Dasher down to her dad's ship. And that's her dad's captain, Captain Paul there, and the crew wanted to meet her. So that kind of passed one of her days. But Renard's heart was successful. He had a very successful heart transplant. He had what's called the perfect heart, the doctor says. So the rehabilitation was going to be more on his leg and his arm, and he got the use of his arm back within 4 weeks. The leg is still ongoing currently with rehabilitation, but the consultant said there was no reason that Renars couldn't make a full recovery. And after 6 months in hospital, Renars did make a full recovery. Next slide, please. And as you can see, this is him at the end of his rehabilitation, and he is on the way to recovery, as it says there. He's very strong-willed. He was very grateful for the visits from the chaplains and also from their engagement officer and volunteers. He had a great sense of humour. He was a good advert for a heart transplant. Every day he was getting stronger and built up and more muscly. Next slide, please. And then after 6 months, the week leading up to Christmas, Renars is transferred back home to his family. And that's him with Darger, his son, 8 years of age, Dasher, his daughter, 10, and wife Jelena. And he's back at home with his family, and he's still recovering. And very quickly, his heart is working normally. There is no issues with his heart. And the consultant says that there's no reason that he can't go back to see as a medical, because he has a healthy heart. The only thing he has to work on is his right leg. But other than that, he's back spending time with his family where he should be. And again, that's the support of not just the NHS staff, but the Stella Maris supporters. So Renars would like to say thank you to everyone too for all the support he got at Stella Maris and out with Stella Maris. Next slide, please. This is just this is just him with his family. He sends his best wishes at Christmas, and the kids were saying thank you for having their dad back. So I think that's probably the best gift we could get at Stella Maris. Next slide, please.
Dear Uncle Joe, thank you very much your gifts. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you. So as you can see, the kids were delighted to have their dad back at home, and we still keep in contact with Renard and his family. We don't just, once they're back home, we don't forget about them. We still support them and touch base with them. So I was speaking to him yesterday, so the family in general are doing okay. I'd just like to kind of move to some of our work in Belfast with our chaplain, Brian Rance. And this is a live case. Brian is supporting this ship here, which you can see in the photograph, which is BAM Proteus, and it has 26 crew on it. And since the 21st of May, it was detained and arrested for conditions on board the ship, no wages paid for 10 weeks. And so the crew have no money for their families. So Stella Maris was contacted to go on board, and we're very fortunate we have what's called a CEF fund, and it's called the Centenary Emergency Fund. And we apply for money for that for the seafarers. And in this case, we applied for a couple of £1,000, and we distributed that to each crew member so that they could send some money back to their families back home. We are currently supporting this. We have a seafarer who was taken off and taken to hospital and is now back on board the ship. But as you can see, it's a current case, and we are hoping for a good outcome, and are supporting the crew daily by taking food supplies, by taking them to the hospital appointments. And our chaplain over there and volunteers are doing marvellous work. So again, thank you to them. Next slide, please. This is just some of the crew, and this is our chaplain, Brian, looking after the crew. And as you can imagine, 26 crew, it's a lot of crew on a ship, but Brian's there daily and sometimes twice a day just to support the crew and what their needs are. And more importantly is getting some financial help for them to support their families back home with their own bills and food supplies. Next slide, please. And that's a very happy crew, appreciative of anything that we give them in support, not just financially, but it's important to point out, they ask for prayers. They just ask for people to support them. So they are so grateful. And I think if you look in their faces, you will understand how important it is to them and to us to make sure that we can support them and their families while they are detained on a ship. They have nowhere to go. They are very isolated. Next slide, please. Thank you. And in the photograph there is 5 fishermen with myself. And these 5 fishermen have recently been in a court case, which has took 9 years to go to court. And they are part of a modern day slavery case. And they've been treated horrendously. And it's been on the BBC News. It's been on documentaries. And about 8 or 9 days ago, the person who was responsible for the ill treatment of them pled guilty after 5 days at court of a 21-day case. But the guys had to relive their stories, and it was so sad to no food, no proper drinking water, giving them water out of tanks that are rusty. One injured his head, no first aid box, no medical supplies. It was just a horrible experience for him. But they've relived it at court. And next slide, please. And the guy on the right of me is called Cole. And when the prosecutor fiscal came in and told us that the person had pled guilty, they were crying in the witness room. And she said, "Are you okay? Is this okay? Do you believe that, we've done the right thing here at court?" And he couldn't stop crying. And he says, "It's a happy tears," he says, "because finally justice has been served and people believe us and our stories about how badly we were treated. No food, no water, working 22 hours a day, not getting proper pay." So justice has been served for those 5 men. And again, it's been a lengthy process, 9 years for justice for those guys. So it's a long time for them, and it has a big impact on them and their families. I think next slide. I think is that. Yep, that's the last slide. So I would just again like to say that the work we do, we can only talk about so much here in the webinar, but there's so much work going on in the UK. And Donnelly, I see on here, and Donnelly was involved with some of those fishermen. So it's not just Scotland, it's UK, and also globally. We have a good contact network, and more importantly, we support the fishermen or the seafarers wherever they are, and we just try and treat them with the dignity they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. That was very, very moving, and thank you, Sarah. I'll let you spool up my slides, but I'm just going to make a couple of observations. And the first one, not wishing to embarrass dear old Joe, but I think the support that both you and Robert King provided to Reynolds was second to none. And I know that the service that you have provided daily, day in, day out, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week was just exceptional. And for that, you received many plaudits and was described as the third emergency service, or the fourth emergency service, i.e. they're able to respond in very quick time. Now, here's a funny story about Joe and Reynolds. Reynolds was an avid Coca-Cola drinker, and Joe spent an awful lot of time buying fizzy pop for Reynolds. I knew things were serious, and there was one heck of a demand on Joe when Joe said to me, after looking after Reynolds for about 4 months, he said, "Tim, is there any chance I could use the charity credit card to buy more Coca-Cola?" Because I know full well that Joe, along with all the other chaplains, constantly dip their hands into their own pockets to support seafarers. So for that, Joe, I am truly grateful. And you were quite right to point out that Anne and Nick O'Neill have been supporting people, mainly fishermen, trapped in modern slavery and human trafficking. And for example, Father Jerry in Belfast and Brian are looking after 4 Ghanaians who are currently in the national referral mechanism. And we, Stella Maris, flew them home last summer back to Ghana so they could spend some time with their families. One was to get married, and the other one was to bury his mother, who died months previously. And we brought them back home to Belfast so that they too, like the 5 fishermen that Joe's described, can seek justice. Okay, so I don't know if I'm back onto my slides yet, but looking ahead, thank you, perfect timing. Looking ahead to 2026, our priorities are really clear, and clearly we're 6 months into 2026 already. But we're looking at re-establishing a chaplain in northwest Scotland, and that's on the west coast, centred around Oban and Fort William. We're looking at increasing our chaplaincy provision in Falmouth. Now, currently, Raf is our chaplain in Falmouth, but we're looking at extending the number of days that Raf's going to work so that he can cover some of those vital ports in Newlyn, Megavissey, Looe, to support fishers and seafarers there. We're also looking at creating a cruise ship chaplaincy coordinator. Now, the cruise ship coordinator has been fantastically managed by Luke, and I see that Luke is online. I mentioned earlier that Luke is our regional port chaplain in Southampton. But twice a year at Lent and at Christmas, Luke finds 8 priests who can go on board cruise ships there to look after the crew and the delivery of sacraments. But of course, some of that also extends to the passengers as well, but it is predominantly for the crew. It's been so successful and is growing in popularity with the cruise ship owners that we're going to find a cruise ship coordinator so that we can look at extending that particular ministry. We're looking at also establishing a comprehensive mental health program. That's not just for ourselves, a little bit for ourselves, but primarily for the seafarers that we support, whether that be mental health awareness for those who want to take it to the next level, mental health first aid, and then finally, critical incident crew support training, which most of our chaplains have already completed in the last month or two. And that critical incident crew support training provides our chaplains with the skills and the tools to be able to deal with serious incidents on board, whether that be death, whether it be injury. And the feedback from those courses has been absolutely tremendous. We're going to continue our support to Ukraine, and Ukraine is for us all, and Father Alex and his team out there remains very dear to our hearts, supporting them and the seafarers and fishers in their desperate hour of need. We're also going to grow our Stella Maris network overseas. We're here to support those countries, those local dioceses, those local bishoprics who want to establish a Stella Maris presence in their country. And one that has literally just come into our view is to establish a network in the country of Angola in Western Africa. And then finally, we need to strengthen our own fundraising and sustainability so we can continue to support Joe, Nick, Anne, and their team of chaplains in what they do. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do a whole load of thank yous, and it's like a night at the Oscars, so you're just going to have to bear with me. So I would like to publicly thank all the other charities that we work with and who share our ministry, what we do. And I can tell you now, when I travel the length and breadth of the country visiting our own chaplains, that there is always another charity member alongside. On the left there, we've got Mission to Seafarers, and that chap on the far left, as you look at it, that's Paul. Paul runs the Flying Angels Centre in Belfast. There's Joe, and there's Smiley Brian and two of his volunteers. But the support and the work, the collaborative work together is second to none. If you look on the right-hand side, that's Fisherman's Mission. Again, that's Brian taking a selfie shot, and you got Ingrid and Leslie in the centre of the photograph, and that's down in Kilkeel. I could talk through so many other examples. Luke and Gregory down in Southampton with Kat and with from the Mission Seafarers, Franz from the Sailors Society. I could go up to Hull with Anne McLaren, our senior airport chaplain there, and talk about her fantastic relationship with Reverend Tim. And similarly, Joe in Grangemouth and the other Reverend Tim from the Mission Seafarers. Wherever we go, we're working hand in glove with other charities. Why? Because it's all about supporting our beneficiaries, our seafarers, fishers, and their families. So thank you to my team for embracing that spirit of partnership and collaboration. And my public thanks as well to those other charities who are so welcoming. Next slide, please. I want to thank our parishes. And on the left there, that's Glasgow. And I should also thank the Bishop of Glasgow at Christmas Carols. In the middle there, that's Christmas Carols at in Hull. And then finally, on the right there, more Christmas Carols and Deacon Joe. But there are so many other pictures I could show of parishes. At the simplest level, our parishes and our parishioners are our groundwork. They are our base. They are our rock. Now, Sea Sunday remains one of the most important moments in the Stella Maris year. And why is Sea Sunday important? And as everybody knows, it falls on the second Sunday in July. So this year it's the 12th of July. I've been reliably informed because we have a ticking clock that is 25 days to go. It's important because it's an opportunity to tell our parishioners about the fantastic work that seafarers and fishers do, moving global trade and putting food on our plate, but also the tremendous sacrifice that they make. The second reason why it's important is it's an opportunity to tell the parishioners about their maritime Catholic charity, Stella Maris. And then thirdly, it's the support that the parishes provide, whether it's through the Sea Sunday collection. And last year, it raised £602,000, and that's our highest total ever. I think that broke the record set in 2018. So the generosity of our parishioners is second to none. And when I'm reading in various fundraising and various charity literature that individual donations and income is on the decrease, for Stella Maris, it's the other way. I think that's all about making sure that people understand what fishers and seafarers do and what Stella Maris does. But of course, parishes do much, much more. Next slide, please. That's a group of knitters, and there's a lovely story here. This is in Ardglass in Northern Ireland. These are 3 knitting groups, and you can see Joe there and Brian, I think, at the back, and Father Finbar is in the photo as well. This is 3 groups of knitters, 1 Catholic group and 2 Protestant groups. It's the first time they ever come together to knit. Now, knitters are important because every stitch is an act of kindness. Every hat is a gesture of friendship. And every gift carries with it the love and prayers of the Stella Maris family. And I think that is known and truly appreciated by the seafarers who are given these hats. But I would like to say that behind every parish contact, of course, there is a wonderful parish priest, but there is a wonderful parish contact. And that parish contact keeps alive the Stella Maris message about what we do, what seafarers do. It is they who organise collections, promote Sea Sunday, and support the mission throughout the year, and whether that's through coffee mornings or just get-togethers. So we thank parish contacts and knitters and natters, which is an expression I heard the other day, which I rather like. Next slide, please. Thank you to our volunteers. I must have a photo library of about 1 million volunteers in action. That centre one there is Anne with her volunteers on Hull. The left there is our volunteer in Cardiff. It's lovely Barbara. And on the right, again, that's Anne with Phil Nolan. There are so many pictures of volunteers. And our volunteer ship visitors are there to support our regional port chaplains. They're there when the chaplains are away on a course, away on leave. But of course, watching the volunteers working together with the chaplains, it is truly a sight to behold. And I've had much pleasure now of accompanying volunteers on ship visits. And if the truth be known, I see very little difference to what they do than with our full-time staff. And they embody the very best of Stella Maris. And as I often like to say, I can't take the credit for this particular quote, but volunteers don't get paid, not because they're worthless, but because they're priceless. And thank you for your generosity, compassion, and commitment to seafarers, fishers, and their families, and to this wonderful charity of ours. Next slide, please. Well, thank you, trustees. Again, I've got a gazillion pictures of trustees, but I thought I would just show there Esteban, our chair, who we heard from earlier. On the right, as you look at it, that's John, who's our vice chair, and John is currently online, and Maita, who's from Dundee. Now, we've got our trustees, who are all professionals, highly committed, highly dedicated, and they all offer me and the rest of the team fantastic guidance, fantastic advice. And without them, we would be in a poor place. Next slide. Thank you for the support staff. And there's a picture of me presenting a papal blessing to Jonathan Hurd. Jonathan was previously, known to many of you, was previously our Deputy Director, International Programs. Jonathan has now moved on to be the Director of Jesuit Missions. But the support staff there work tirelessly in fundraising, in resources, compliance, safeguarding, all manner of activity they do, working tirelessly behind the scenes in support of our chaplains on the front line, doing that frontline delivery. But it goes beyond that, because I know that, for example, Ian, our head of corporate partnerships and engagements, will routinely reach out to shipping owners if a problem or a concern has been identified with a seafarer on board. But also, it's nice that it comes back our way, where those P&I clubs, shipping agents, shipping companies, shipping owners come to us when they want us to place a chaplain on board to support a seafarer or seafarers. And there in the light blue shirt is Carlos. And Carlos is part of our international team with Mike Noyes, who is on board, who's just joined the charity. Welcome, Mike, week 2, Baptisms of Fire, supporting our international network, whether it's supporting the establishment and the building of a new network overseas, or supporting an ongoing project, or supporting the Apostleship of the Sea as they set up their own mission in the Vatican. Next slide. I thought I'd put that one up there. It's for a bit of fun. Thank you, chaplains. I know that we've got 2 of those chaplains, Nick on the left, Luke in the middle, online. Our chaplains come in all sorts of shapes, sizes, experience, and every single one of them I know is absolutely dedicated to what they do. And I take my hat off to each and every one of them. I am constantly impressed and deeply appreciative of the work that they do supporting seafarers and fishers. Next slide. Now, I'd like to say a special thank you to Esteban, who started off the webinar this evening. Now, this year marks the retirement of Esteban as our Chair of Trustees after 8 years. Now, during his time as Chair, Stella Maris has navigated some of the most challenging periods in our history and has emerged stronger than ever. And as I said in our impact report, Esteban has held the helm through some tricky waters with a calm, unflappable presence. He is a deeply holy man, a great mentor and guide to me personally, and we shall miss his experience and wisdom. Now, I meant every word of that. So Esteban, thank you for your leadership, faith, wisdom, and above all, friendship. And everybody, please join me in expressing our gratitude and best wishes to you as you begin your new chapter. Okay, some final closing remarks from me then. Now, as I look back on 2025, I am filled with gratitude. As I look forward to 2026, I'm filled with hope. Not because of strategies, budgets, or projects, and I know that Paul, our head of resources, would raise an eyebrow, but because every plan ultimately means we're helping more people, more lives are changed, and more seafarers and fishers know that they are not forgotten. Now, to all of our supporters, our parish clergy, our volunteers, our corporate partners, our friends, and our wider Stella Maris family, of which you are all part of our family, thank you for standing alongside the people of the sea. And to our chaplains, our support staff, our trustees, and to Esteban, thank you for helping guide Stella Maris on this remarkable journey. So that concludes my presentation, and we can now throw it open to the floor for any Q&A. So any questions? So I'm looking, I can't see any questions. So I've prepped myself whilst everybody's going to start thinking about a question to type into the box. 40 minutes to the football. The first question is, I'm going to plant in my own mind is, what are we doing in the Straits of Hormuz? That's a good question. So we as an organisation, probably not as a Stella Maris UK, we haven't had a great deal of contact with seafarers in the Straits of Hormuz. but our international Stella Maris partners have in India and in the Philippines. They are speaking on a daily, constant basis to seafarers trapped on board ships in those straits. But also, more importantly, perhaps, they're looking after their families who have been left behind. On a practical note, I think we're looking at about 2,000 ships still at anchor, which is affecting roughly 20,000 seafarers. They are getting fed, they are getting resupplied. Repatriation at the end of contracts is happening. Sometimes it's difficult finding replacement crews. But I do worry for some of those smaller ships, smaller ship owners who can't afford for their ships not to be making business. And some have been abandoned. And it is those crews who we're particularly worried about. What have we, Stella Maris UK, done? Well, one practical thing we've done is we have shared lessons from Ukraine, who have pulled together a what to do in a missile and drone attack. As an ex-soldier, I reviewed that guidance, and even after my experience in the army, I found it incredibly useful. So just imagine what a seafarer, he's not a sailor, he's not a Royal Navy sailor, not an armed sailor, imagine what benefit that they will experience. Now, we've shared that widely with the UK Chamber of Shipping, the International Chamber of Shipping, and UK P&I clubs and ship owners. And we hope that that message, learned from our colleagues in Stella Maris Odessa, is going to be of benefit to seafarers. And what else have we done on the spiritual side? Well, it was lovely to see our bishop, who is our interim Secretary General, Bishop Luis Quintero. It's lovely to see a powerful message from him and from the Holy Father about the prayers that we should be offering to support seafarers and their families who've been caught up in this trouble. I think when the Straits of Hormuz opens, and I think the treaty is due to be signed on the 19th, we hope to see that free flow of trade and oil, because it is having a worldwide impact, and we'll all experience that impact ourselves when we are filling up our cars at the petrol station. But more acutely, stress is being felt by fishers, fishermen, and fishing vessel owners who are finding it increasingly more and more expensive to be able to fill up their own fishing vessels so that they can go to sea. So I thought I'd just give you a little bit of an update on what we're doing with and our thoughts on the Straits of Hormuz. Now, I notice that we've now got 2 questions. Okay, good one from an anonymous attendee. How important are inshore fishing communities to Stella Maris? I think that's a really, really good question. I'm going to say a couple of words, and then I'm going to hand over to Nick O'Neill. And Nick is particularly passionate about the way that he supports fishers, as are some of our other chaplains. But Nick's online. So for me, if I was to be honest, I think probably about 80% of our work and effort goes into supporting seafarers. That's probably much our bread and butter. But we do support fishers in those smaller communities, whether it's Doug Duncan up in Peterhead and Fraserburgh on the northeast coast, Scotland, to Martin Matheson, who out in the Western Isles, our chaplain there, who spends all his time looking after fishers, to Anne and what she does in Hull and Grimsby, to what Nick does in Portsmouth, Shoreham, to what Luke does in Portland and Weymouth, and what Anne does to supporting fishers in Plymouth. And Anne is online, and Anne spoke to me the other day to say that 3 Filipino fishers whose families have been badly affected by the earthquake that struck the Philippines on the 8th of June, and their families' houses have been destroyed, whether we could provide some support. I'm very proud to say, and I have my trustees to thank for this, that we have been able to supply a cash injection of £15,000 to support Father Dongdong, the Philippines National Director, and his 3 Stella Maris chaplains operating in that part of the world. So from my perspective, fishing communities, inshore fishing is very important. And if you want to go really inshore, we can talk about Loch Ness, the largest freshwater lake in Europe, where we've been supporting fishers there in their difficulty that they're having with green algae, and they are predominantly catching eels. So I hope that answers that question. But I am going to hand over to Nick. So Sarah or Naz is going to have to unmute Nick. So Nick, have you got anything to add?
Evening, everyone. Just to say, fishing communities along the south coast make up a big chunk of ship visits and a lot of the support we do. And of course, they're a really underrepresented and sometimes forgotten part of our ministry. But they're men and women that are struggling with the cost of living, the cost of fuel, relationship problems, mechanical issues. And it's only getting worse because of that issue that Tim's highlighted with the Straits of Hormuz. The cost of fuel is now just so expensive that many of the fishers can't go out, or they're struggling to cover the costs, which means they're not fishing, which means they're not putting food on the table, which means they're looking for support. And it's very difficult for self-employed inshore fishers to get the support they need. So it's something that we're really aware of and something that we try to keep as part of our ministry on a daily basis. So, just ask people to keep those fishing communities in their prayers. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Okay, moving on to the next one. How do you help seafarers keep up their spiritual or prayer life on board, especially when at sea? That is a tricky one to answer. I am going to ask Luke in a minute, our chaplain down in Southampton, just to talk a little bit about a joint project that we're doing with the Sailors Society. It doesn't necessarily come back to answering that question specifically, but it is an interesting project nevertheless, because it's all about how do we extend that care when sailors are alongside, which is where we come in with that vital face-to-face contact, or when they're out at sea, which is Sailor Society. So, Luke, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to get your thoughts, although I know you'll sing this one easy. But how do we help? Well, when our chaplains and volunteer ship visitors go on board ships to visit crew, they do go armed with a whole load of faith material, whether that be Bibles, which we very gratefully receive from the Military and Naval Bible Society, or our Stella Maris Quarterly Faith magazine, which we distribute all around the world to all of the Stella Maris chaplains around the world, so they could place a quarterly faith magazine on board, and that talks about the liturgical year, but also offers some reflection, but also some practical pieces, rosaries, miraculous medals, prayer cards. We provide all of those. Now, and we have a very captive audience, because if there are 1.9 million seafarers and 650,000 of them just happen to be Filipinos, who are a deeply religious bunch, then we'll provide that to them. But of course, I visited earlier on this year a ship with Anne Donnelly down in Plymouth. And the first thing the Turkish master said to Anne was, "I don't believe in any of this religious nonsense." At which point Anne just beautifully ignored him. And we ended up speaking about family, life at home, life on board, 3 strong cups of Turkish coffee and a whole load of Turkish delight. Later, after about an hour, we left a very happy master, and we hadn't spoken about religion. If he didn't want to speak about religion, then that's fine by him. But of course, I can recount so many tales of the support, of the spiritual support that we provide, whether it's delivering a mass on board, a blessing, or seafarers who just want to go to mass when they've got time ashore. So I'm going to go to Luke to talk a little bit about our joint project, and then I'm going to go back to Nick, if Nick just wants to say a little bit of a few words in answer specifically to that question. So over to you, Luke.
Sorry, Tim, Luke isn't online. You might want to go straight to Nick.
Okay, right, straight to Nick.
Evening again, everyone. Yeah, so the chaplains, we have access to a whole different bunch of faith resources. So we've got different prayer books, prayer cards, rosaries, and the Bibles that Tim mentioned that we get from the Bible Society. And so those chaplains can go on board and take those things to the seafarers. And likewise, there was one point when we were actually doing sort of broadcasting the gospel readings and a reflection for seafarers that could be sent to different ships, and they were sharing that amongst those that wanted to participate. We've had prayer boxes in the past as well, where we would take those prayer kits on board, and it would contain everything for those that wanted to participate in Christian prayer, to have prayer books, sort of electric candle, and just basically the words that they would need to use for a little prayer service. And then relating to the project with the Sailor Society, so the Sailor Society about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, went almost completely digital, providing support via WhatsApp, via website, downloadable content, so that if seafarers were at sea and weren't able to connect, they could have downloadable resources to help them with any particular issues: isolation, prayer, family life, relationship, any almost every subject you can imagine. They had some sort of content and available courses for people to participate in. And because Stella Maris are the largest ship visiting network, they wanted to partner with us so that we would do the face-to-face visits with seafarers. And then if we could refer those seafarers into any sort of course or content, we could then link them up with Sailor Society to access the courses that they have. So I think hopefully that covers it, Tim.
That's perfect, Nick. Absolutely perfect. Okay, well, I can't see any more questions, but while I just comment on one bit of chat, if anybody's got any final questions, then start typing furiously. But I just wanted to say to Alistair Scott, it's our privilege and our honour to support the Filipino community out there in General Santos. We did the same last year when an earthquake struck, and then 2 weeks later a typhoon washed away. I'll talk about Joe O'Donnell's story. So Joe sent me a CEF application for requesting £1,500 so that a seafarer could buy a tent for his grandparents who brought him and his brother up. I said, I'll just hold fire on this one, Joe. I'm just going to do a little bit more checking in country. And Joe was grumbling, as they do up north in Scotland. Anyway, the local in-country team did the research and came back saying the house is uninhabitable, but for £2,500, we'll build them a new house. And that's exactly what we did. And I've got a lovely question here, a lovely thing here on the front cover. And I don't know if people can see it, but this is our impact report that came out today. But I don't know if people can see it, but that is a picture of the gran and granddad with their newly rebuilt house. So it's a real pleasure for us. Pleasure for us to do that. Okay, are there any questions? So I have seen one about. Does anyone have any questions about Sea Sunday? So Sea Sunday, 12th of July, absolutely dependent on our parish contacts who are there to promote Sea Sunday, to get it into the parish bulletin beforehand, to read out the address, to bring to life what it is that seafarers and fishers do for us, and what Stella Maris, this Catholic charity of theirs, does. All the resources are being dispatched and are due to be posted on the 29th of June. And of course, we have all of those resource packs available on our website as well. I think that's all I can say for Sea Sunday. It's very important to us, but in that order I described earlier, it's thanking and recognizing the sacrifice that seafarers, fishers make. it's recognising the great work that Stella Maris chaplains, volunteer ship visitors, parish contacts, donors, supporters do to support this wonderful charity of ours. And then finally, it's that support, not just support on Sea Sunday, but support throughout the year, and offering that support, whether that's physical support or just prayer support to seafarers and fishers and their families. Right. Any more? I think we've got about 20 minutes to get on our English tops. For the Scots amongst them, they'll probably be sticking on Croatian flags and Croatian tops, or supporting. I can say that, right, because I used to be in the King's Own Scottish Borderers. So, but no, tongue in cheek. Thank you everybody for attending. It's always a pleasure. We will post this webinar onto our website so that people can share it with others. I'm not going to ask anybody to sit through it twice because that could be awfully painful. But on behalf of, I think, all of us, and the fishers and the seafarers and their families that we support, thank you so much for your commitment, your dedication, your prayers, for everything that we all do collectively. I genuinely believe that we are part of one family in what we do. So from the bottom of my heart and from everybody, thanks so much for listening, and come on, England. Bye-bye, everybody.